So one problem you often have in a shade garden, just to compound everything else, is it's dry, because the trees above it are shedding. So if you've never used Soil Moist, it's got a lot of names, Agrisorb, it's, you know, any kind of variation there, you know, therein. It's basically the stuff in diapers that is made for plants. And it's at least 5 syllables long, but it's not as nasty as the name implies. It lasts about 3 years in the ground.
Wow.
And it will disintegrate in time. But it holds water like a diaper. So it tells you to use it dry, but it should always be put at least 4 inches under the ground. And I like to use it wet. So for a 10-inch pot, it says to use 1.5 teaspoons. So we will do a little. So there we have our 1.5 teaspoons, very scientific.
What is it called again?
Soil Moist.
Where do you
And
get it?
You can get it at Sloan, or you can buy it also at Sonag. I also like to use it wet because you know you have a little bit better feeling of what you're doing once you get used to it. And I usually use fertilizer water to dampen it. You know, you can use a kelp water, whatever flavor fertilizer water you're used to. It's easier to see. This is just food coloring, so if you want to play with it later, you can touch it and not worry about anything. So we've got about 10 ounces of water here. So if you put this, you know, in several places around the plant, it gives it a little bit more reservoir in your shady places to establish, particularly if you buy like a shrub that's in that really sawdusty kind of nothing soil, you know, and you're already trying to get it in between roots and you've, you know, chopped off here or there. And it is a great thing.
Would that work well in window box?
Fabulous.
My window box is dry out.
And it's good to put near the edge of the window box. You know how you get that shrinkage, and then you pour in water and everything comes out the bottom.
Yes, yeah.
And I like to, because we live where we live, I like to put it in discrete areas so the roots can have a choice of being wet or not being wet, because some years we are doused. So, and you don't know when you plant. So, you know, you give this place is your damp spot and this is your drainage spot. So if we, you know, keep on going super rainy, you know, you still got good drainage. Because you can't just make a soup and nothing's gonna drain and a plant won't be happy, particularly certain plants. I've not tried diapers yet. I've only used the but chances are it's got more, you know, odor, blah, blah, blah.
So that won't mold, it won't.
If it's on the top of the soil, it will get slimy, you know, it'll have algae on it. So that's why you don't want it on the top of the soil. And plus it's, you know, step on the stuff. You're on
And
your
it's non-toxic? It's non-toxic?
It's not toxic. I don't think an animal should eat it. It's not toxic to worms. It's probably, I mean, it's probably not a good idea to eat something that's, but my dog's eating diapers and
Can you use it, like I use gutters, and that's why I plant the lettuce and grow from you. But then, I mean, the lettuce, usually I use the coffee drying filters.
Mhm.
But would that be bad for the lettuce and
No,
then eating it?
not at
I
all.
could eat the lettuce.
No, yeah, and that kind of toxicity, yeah, I'm sorry. No, it hasn't, it's pretty much inert,
Okay.
but, and if you put, you know, whatever it absorbs, it absorbs and then will give off, so, you know. So I think that's pretty much there. But I'll leave it here and we can pass it around later after you finish your lunch and you can play with that. But this portion is supposed to be deer resistant. But this was my new plant this year, and it's not deer resistant at all. It's a species begonia, but it's fragrant. And it's green leaf, but it takes some sun. But it's great fun. So that was my new baby this year.
What's it called?
It's called White Angel. But the backbone of most deer-resistant stuff is going to be salvias. Nobody messes with salvias. And of course, they're part of my favorite babies too. And salvias can be from 10 inches tall, perennials, annuals, to 4 to 5 feet tall. This is, you're usually used to Salvia Victoria. This is Salvia, we call it Big Blue. It can be 5 feet tall. And it has huge flower stakes that make great cuts. I also do a lot of cut flowers. So, you know, this is in the sun. It takes up a huge area, gives you a lot of blue color towards the end of the year. And is a very nice one. This is a perennial salvia. It's in the Salvia greggii family. It's also very nice, but that's about a 20-inch one. This one is perennial if you're lucky, but the color. This is Salvia black and blue. But it usually comes back. This was the salvia we saw in the garden. It can actually take part shade, one of the few salvias that does. Of course, it's like, you know, the salvia your mother grew if you're from the South. But this one is 30 inches tall, so it's a lot more fun.
And the name of that one?
Lighthouse Red. This one lost all of its punk, but this is Wendy's wish. This one lost its ump. But this is a nice seed salvia. It's Summer Jewel. It comes in white and the salmon, which is unusual for a salvia. And it's about 18 inches tall. And white, pink, and red. It's a salvia cochineal. And these are just some more salvias. So any of these ornamental salvias, you know you've got them. It usually smells like cat pee. But the deer don't like it, so. And you'll know if you're weeding. And yeah, that's just salvia. Now, marigolds, of course, are a very good deer-resistant plant. But, you know, they don't always have to be silly little 10-inch, you know, marigolds. This is an Asian type marigold, and it grows to be 40 inches tall. And these are babutas. It's a whole series of ones, and they get even bigger heads. But you know, like you see in India, where they do all the lovely big things with marigolds. This is an heirloom marigold. It was discovered in a garden in 1887 in Sweden, in Uppsala. And so, you know, it's got a little different bloom. And there again, it's going to be about 24 inches tall. And then this is a lemon-scented marigold, and it's a signet marigold. So they don't always have to look like those other ones. Call me if you got a question. Otherwise, I'll yak.
Can we get them at your place?
Not this time of year. I'm kind of
But
low
in the
on
summer?
Yeah,
Spring?
spring.
How easy is to find that salvia,
Which one?
the red one? Do you have it?
I have it. Most garden centers, and particularly the big boxes, if you might have noticed, are growing shorter and shorter and shorter things. And then they put growth regulators on them. So if you've ever gotten something that said it was supposed to be 24 inches and you're sitting there going, they've jumped it up with growth regulators so it's easier to contain in a pot. And it takes a while for the growth regulators to get out of the pot and, you know, or its lifespan. And so, you know, and shorter plants are easier to bring into bloom fast and easier to keep in a small container, looking good for market appeal. Sometimes I have to sell plants that aren't in bloom, and it's a bear.
What is in the growth regulator?
It's hormones, plant hormones. I could have told you 20 years ago. But it's a common practice.
That's all right, that's okay.
It's a nice long word. You could Google it.
Yeah, there you go.
Some of you were asking what the plant was at the sunny end of that garden. It's a globe amaranth, a gomphrena. They're often dried. The short version you see at Lowe's is called buddies. It grows to 10 inches tall. The common old-fashioned one was about 24 inches tall and comes in purple. Looks like a purple clover. Been around for years. This one is called Fireworks. It grows to be 3.5 feet tall. And, you know, give it more sun and it is a huge, huge plant. Kind of spiky, kind of like verbena bone. You know, it has a lot of excellent cut, needless to say, can be dried. It's good to plant something like this or like a verbena bone or something that's going to be nice and tall that usually doesn't come in till the late. So when you're thinking about your bulbs, and you know your bulbs won't be here forever, and plant something big that's going to come in late beside it, like a big salvia or something else. You won't be digging, you won't be stabbing your bulbs trying to mess around, and you'll have some late spring cover, late summer coverage. Verbena bone, it gets to be weedy sometimes. Deer don't like it, and it's a great big coverage kind of baby.
Is this one a perennial?
No.
No?
Good bloom time, not a perennial. No such luck. Most all your ferns, deer resistant. That's easy. Nasturtiums, very nice deer resistant plants. Totally edible if you don't have a male dog in your neighborhood. There are nasturtiums that climb, and whenever you can, climbing something up like a holly or something, it's not going to hurt the holly. And of course, when it's climbing, then you can eat it with impunity. And using the vertical space is always nice, especially in a limited garden. And in a sun garden, you might get to the sun by that point. Mint. There's all kinds of things that are deer resistant that don't play well with others. This one is a new mint, which I'm quite fond of. They tell me that this is the mint that is used in tabbouleh. It's a Lebanese mint. It has a nice, different, airy feel to it. Excellent cut. So if you had a defined spot in your garden, or you know, you wanted to do something, it will overwinter in a container. It's a nice mint.
Is it invasive like the others?
Yeah, totally.
Tell me the name of it again. It was
Hybeck, or in the South, we call it Bible mint. Now, often you're going to have, you know, dry shade is the gardener's ultimate pets. And this is a very strange plant. It's a wild ginger. And that's the only portion visible this time of year. It was on our property when we bought the property in 1972. And it's growing under white pines, which is like bare of all places. It has a beautiful variegated leaf the rest of the time of the year. But right now, all you get is this. It's fun. And that's our own. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the seed. Okay. I love the Garas. They're white and pink, very airy, excellent cuts. You know, there again, you can't get your panties in a snitch because a lot of people can't get these to come back. I mean, I know gardeners who are like all-time neurotic gardeners, and they can't get them to come back. It requires the perfect niche, the perfect drainage. But you usually get enough bloom out of them in a season that you can't fault it if it doesn't come back. And they are fun. And of course, this doesn't even look like much now. But remember that little fluffy white thing. And what you see usually at the big boxes is called diamond frost. And it is a plant protected variety. So usually a plant protected variety has a bigger label. And you're not allowed to propagate it. It's illegal. As a person, you could. As a plant person, I can't. But they also come from seed. So you have a chance of finding one that's not as expensive in this big pot. And they're two heights. The ones that come from seeds, I swear, are the exact same as the ones they propagated for patented. But they grow like the ones there, which is about 18 inches or 24 inches. And they're called Glitz and Glamour. Excellent cut. Euphorbia, it has a milky stem. The deer will never touch it. Oh, a lot of odoriferous stuff deer aren't going to touch. So, you know, your thymes, your mints, your nasturtiums. The thymes are great. And this is a nice Artemisia that I got last year. This one is called Parfum de Ethiopia. I never know Ethiopia spelled this good. But excellent, totally easy perennial. Doesn't bloom, it's just grown for its fluffy foliage. And deer resistant. Now, we're in Valle Crucis. We have a miserable deer population. Coral bells are on the deer resistant list. And the deer will come by and munch them. But they usually don't kill them. So, you know, if you're marginal or, you know, you want to give them a try, excellent perennial too. There's so many fun colors, good cut, you know, to put in arrangements and stuff like that. And they're virtually evergreen, ever red or ever orange, whatever. So it's really nice for the locals who spend, you know, all winter here. You get to see something alive in your shade garden. That's a novelty. One of the few perennial vegetable herbs that take the shade and grow well and the deer don't eat them is a sorrel. It's not really related to the weed, the wood sorrel. This is French sorrel. Used in soups, used in salads, very lemony tasting. This one is red veined. Some people call it raspberry dressing, I'm not sure why. But it's very lemony tasting. And there again, it looks like something. So that's, you know, you can eat it and it looks like something and grows in the shade. That's pretty good. Angelonia, summer snapdragons, summer orchids. I think that's most of the common names. Relatively new on the scene, excellent cut, but it needs sun. But fabulous in containers, window boxes, several heights, purple, pink, and white in a bicolor for your choices on these copies. But it's a very nice little plant. Loves the heat. If you don't get around to deadheading it, it's not gonna, you know, it's not the end of the world. It'll keep on growing. There again, there's a choice of the seed varieties or the not seed varieties. Both are equally as good. Coreopsis. Oh, the coreopsis here, not much. So you've got perennial coreopsis, and I had a perennial coreopsis here. Oh well, you know, Daisy is. This is an annual coreopsis. It's called Incredible Tall, and it's, grows to be about 3.5 feet tall, lots of blooms, annual, good cut, just fun. Deer don't eat it. That's the globe amaranth, we already had that one. Your bleeding hearts. Dicentra, a good shade plant. This is the ever blooming one, you know, your ones that bloom first off in the spring, big nice flush of bleeding hearts, then it's gone. So you might want to pair it with another perennial so you don't go back in there and dig it up, hurt it in some fashion. The ageratums, deer rarely touch them. They can take a surprising amount of shade. They're a little bit water hogs, but not too bad. There again, these are the tall varieties. Excellent cuts, and you know, you just, it's not, you know, you can't always have the little balls of everything. These grow to be about 30 inches tall, blue horizon, red flint, and this white one, the white one's white dondo. For window boxes or dry ground cover, Dichondra Silver Falls. It also comes in a green. The deer don't mess with that. It's good because it is a perennial in zone 7, so it usually gets us past that first awkward frost, particularly if it's in a window box, because you know the frost isn't getting to your window box. But that's what they use in the Blowing Rock hanging baskets. Dichondra. Dicentra was the last one.
Is there something like that that just grows wild?
Undoubtedly somewhere.
Okay. Well, I needed something to hang down in my baskets, and there was something on the ground that was doing that, so I just stuck it in.
Ah, you might be thinking of Creeping Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has a kind of a little bloom kind of like that, kind of
Yeah.
almost a salvia bloom. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Creeping Charlie.
Okay.
Calicuma.
Works just fine.
Yeah. It's a weed. But since it's in your hanging baskets, it's not a weed.
Window box.
Window box. Zinnias. Usually the deer don't eat the zinnias. And this is an heirloom zinnia called Red Spider. Just something fun. You know, everything had to come from somewhere before we started messing with it. And chances are it's taller, more resistant to diseases, and you know, kind of cute. That's Red Spider. I didn't have any others in this. Snapdragons. Deer don't eat snapdragons, and snapdragons are totally edible for people. They make great little snap things. We all know why they're snapdragons, don't we? They talk to you. And these are rockets, and each rocket color smells differently.
They do well in the shade too.
Nah,
No.
need sun. Foxgloves, totally poisonous. That's where they get angina medicine from originally. So, but I wouldn't suggest you go chopping it up. You're feeling, yeah. It is a biennial, so you know sometimes it comes and goes and here and there. Except the couple varieties that I mentioned, the Temple Bells and the strawberry one, and then there's one which is Mertendensis, which they say is a perennial, but I have never gotten it to come back. So don't feel bad if you lose that one either. The whole genus of Dianthus is deer resistant. So this is a Sweet William, and this is one of the newer ones they've got that blooms all summer long. It's not just a spring bloomer. Its perennialness is in question, but there again, usually you get enough bloom out of it that you don't get too mad if it doesn't come back. Excellent cut, about 30 inches tall. There's a whole series that are long bloomers. The old-fashioned ones only bloom in the spring, but they do come back here and there. And then there are other short ones that usually do come back. They're usually more like a spring flush of bloom, you cut them back, they flush again. And, these are totally edible. Agastache. Agastache anise hyssop. It comes in, orange, pink, blue, red. It really does smell like anise, like licorice. Excellent long-term bloomer. Varying hardiness, but it is a reasonable perennial given the right space. We'll take park shade, excellent cut, but very licoricey, and so the deer don't mess with it at all.
Lowe's has a bunch of those in, and I bought
Right.
8 of them.
Kudos,
Right.
is the one.
Yeah,
On the
mine come back every year, and they come back bigger and bigger, and you're right, the deer don't mess with them, so I plant them right in front of my daylilies. It's the only hope I have.
yeah, if you
I got them everywhere.
yeah, if you can kind of mix things in, I mean, it's not going to keep something off of a hosta or something.
Right.
But there might be a chance that your daylilies had a little bit longer,
A little bit more chance.
chance, yeah. You spray a little bit stuff on them. But yeah, bordering a garden in salvias times, any of these really, good sniffy ones. If they step on something and go, maybe, they won't bug you so bad. Marigolds, another good sniffy one. Yes, ma'am.
My neighbors that are hardly ever here, they're, summer vacation people, they plant angel wing or dragon wing begonias, and then they plant the little regular ones next to it. And the deer eat the big ones and leave the little ones alone. Is there that difference in flavor, or is it?
No, they get enough.
color?
No, they just get enough eating the tall ones and go on, see what's next. If she just had the short ones probably would go too. This is a Culver's root, called Fascination. It's a take on a native. We've got the white Culver's root as a native.
How do you spell it?
Culver's root?
Yeah.
Culver.
Got the root for it.
Yeah, and the place I got it from puts it in the Veronica family. I think it's in the it's more like ironweed, Veronica. But, they argue about who's who in the zoo. This one will take park shade. It, once established, will be 3 feet. Good cut, sturdy as hell.
What was the variety of that one?
Fascination. Because the wild species comes in white. And somebody played with it, got a purple out of it. That's what I could steal off of my plants. And then I've got a few more notes. So we talked about astilbes. And the new astilbe, there's a new series called Pip that's 45 inches tall, which sounds fun. Pip, P-I-P. Astrantia, it's already bloomed out in the garden, but it has a real nice papery bloom, and it's called masterwort, common name. Excellent in the shade, excellent cut, deer don't touch it. The pulmonaria, the lungwort, usually you get the fun splashy leaves, and it blooms early in the spring, the deer won't touch it. Lismacia, that's it's up there with mint. You either love it or you don't. And it's gooseneck. You put it out in the field next to you or something. Or creeping jenny. Creeping jenny, great for pots and window boxes.
What's the difference in creeping Jenny and creeping Charlie?
Creeping jenny is the yellow stuff that comes down.
Right.
Creeping Charlie is a calecama. It's the lawn weed. It's paler green, and it has a scalloped edge. It's quite odoriferous.
Okay. But then I have something that grows crazy, and it's more like a succulent. I don't know what that is, it's going all over my garden. It creeps along, it's more like a succulent.
Sedums,
Maybe if I can see them.
Yeah. Sedums are generally deer resistant, but then there's a whole class of deer resistant plants that if you have hungry deer, they're gonna eat anyway. And it drives me crazy, cause like your autumn joy, or your sedum autumn joy, or your bee balm, you know, perking right along, comes into bloom,
Wham.
wham, the deer wipe out every top of it. So, you know, it's deer resistant, but, you know, they still come in and have their way. Peonies are totally deer resistant. Asters, oregano, thymes, all your herby things are.
They don't bother my dahlias.
You're lucky.
Oh,
There again, they can grow, and then they'll come wipe them out too. And for a perennial like your daylilies and hostas, if they get enough growth on them and, you know, get to feed, you know, get the photosynthesis and get to feed their roots and they've established, even if the deer wipe them out like at the end of the year or something, chances are they're coming back next year. But, you know, if they wipe them out for 3 years, you might as well think of something else. Because, you know, and eventually, you know, there will be a neon sign at your place that says, "Eat here, I have hostas." So at some point, you might want to, you know, give up the hostas, or you can pick up a hosta root in August and store it, and then just use it in a shade pot. You know, maybe where the deer aren't going to get it. Because those little nubbins will store in peat moss just like a dahlia root.
The one thing that I found that actually keeps deer away from my hostas, these plants that they love, is that stuff called liquid fence. They do not like that.
And in time, you might have to change it.
Uh-huh.
You know, because they'll get used to liquid fence, and then you'll have to go to hindrance, which is another great one. Oh, look, we're still blooming here. So that's what the package says to put in a 10-inch hanging basket. I think it's a little bit much. Of course, they're selling their product. Because that would make a pretty good soup in a 10-inch basket. But it does do the job. I mean, you can feel it. This is a list of my new plants I had this year, and like you'll find Aurelia on here and some of the other plants you might not have been able to catch the name of, but you'll find the proper name of it on this, and I'll leave it here. Anybody else have any comments or your deer tricks?
I have another question. I got something that comes and it bites the stem off very close to the ground and leaves it lying there.
Groundhog.
Groundhog.
Time to find a have a heart for somebody with a shotgun.
Yep.
How do you know where it is? I mean, doesn't it make a big hole?
Yeah, well, it's obviously in your garden, so.
My garden is so tiny, I think if there was a hole this big, it would see.
Well, no, I mean, you know, they'll come a great
From,
distance,
like,
yeah.
the woods.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whoa.
No,
I didn't.
I've seen them go snip, snip, snip. You know, it's pretty rude just to bite it off, not even eat it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's my endangered species, goldenrod, that I'm trying to raise in my garden, and they bite the stem off.
You can take one of the big nursery pots and cut out the bottoms and make a collar like we used to do for cutworms and stuff. And, you know, plant it inside of that. So it just has, if it's, you know, if you don't, since it's a special plant, you might not mind looking at the nursery pot.
Yeah.
Because once it gets some growth on it, the groundhog should not mess with it, especially goldenrod. I mean, you can go cut goldenrod anywhere.
Well, yeah.
Tell me again, that stuff you use for deer, you said that it's kind of worked pretty good. You named something else along with liquid fence.
Hindrance. Hindrance.
Hindrance. get your eggs?
Southern Ag. Southern Ag's off Bamboo near the, homeless shelter. And it's where, they sell in bulk and stuff. But you can go and buy a bag of dirt or anything you want there. Nice people, very knowledgeable. But you have to know what you're looking for, cause there's no showroom. You go in there and you talk to Charlie.
Where's this?
It's near the homeless shelter off of Bamboo, the Bamboo near high school, not the Bamboo near Samaritan's Purse.
Is it a store?
Yeah.
It's a wholesale place, mainly, it used to be for growers, but then they opened themselves up to anybody. But, like a bag of Metro Mix that you might pay $15 for somewhere else, you'll pay $12 for there. And you might have to buy, and they did have that soil moist stuff. You might have to buy a little bit bigger quantity, like a gallon, but if, you go in with a couple friends.
And the plants are able to get the water out of
Yes,
something.
and so it would hold your, nutrition too. That's why I water it in with Miracle Grow or, whatever you're given to. If you like organic or inorganic.
What was the variety of the salvia, the big blue one that you said was?
There again, it's starts with I. Blue Spires is its common name. We call it Big Blue. It's, I wanna say Indigifera, but that's another species. I'm not coming up with it. I always have it, I love it, so I usually have it every year.
Would you tell us about your greenhouse?
We're Charlotte's Greenhouse, we're in Valle, Crucis, way off the beaten path. It's quirky. I don't have a lot of space for plants, but I grow a lot of deer-resistant plants, a lot of cut flower plants. I have weird hours, but I'm always open by appointment. My major business is growing lettuce for restaurants. We sell to about 10 or 15 restaurants locally. And so I'm usually open from April to mid-June for plant sales, and then I switch to lettuce and edible flowers. Grow a lot of edible flowers. And been doing it since 1973.
And you had us for lunch a few years ago.
Mhm.
It was wonderful. You took your lettuces and made us a big salad.
And tell them
Sat
about
on
the
your
available
porch.
lettuce.
And if I have leftover lettuce, on Thursday afternoon after 1 o'clock, there is an honor system store in the washroom where we wash lettuce near the greenhouse. And the lettuce is bagged up, or any other extra produce I might have. And there's a note, and there's a bag of lettuce